Yesterday we talked about naming covalent molecules. Today we're going to bring that a little bit further and talk about naming acids. And Bart here is doing a good job of naming sulfuric acid. Can I use this as an example to show you how to write a formula? We're going to talk about it throughout the rest of the slideshow, but I could show you with sulfuric acid with Bart right there, right now. Do you want me to? Or do you want me to just move on and do it in a nice organized way? Nice organized way. Okay, we'll move on. So, there's two types of acids, oxyacids and binary acids. Binary, as many of you already guessed, means two. It does not mean a 0 acid and a 1 acid. Ha, 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 Miss J, you're so funny. It means binary has two elements. Now, because it's an acid, one of those elements will be hydrogen. Remember, we've measured pH, sort of the power of hydrogen, with acids having a lot of hydrogen ions. Oxyacids, well, they must have hydrogen and they must have oxygen somewhere in them, right? So, let's see what we uncover if we continue. If it's a binary acid, the way you name it, or the way someone else is going to name it, maybe Jenna, she will write hydro. This prefix will always be there. She'll take the root of the element's name, then she'll add ic and acid. So this, and this are all added. So, for example, this binary acid, how do I know it's binary? Nick, it has two elements. It has hydrogen and chlorine. Another little clue that it's an acid. Acids always start with hydrogen. So when you see an H listed as the first element, it's an acid. And you're going to have to name it an acid. So you say, okay, there's two elements. Hydrogen's first, so it's going to be an acid. Chlorine is second, so I've got to use that as my root right here where it says chlor. I added hydro, I added ic, I added acid. So if I were to flip this and someone were to tell me they had hydrochloric acid, I would know, hey, they've got chlorine, and I know it has to have a hydrogen. But just like in the last chapter, you used oxidation numbers to figure out how many of each element you need, you have to do that with this too. You have to say, all right, what's the oxidation number or charge on hydrogen? It's going to be 1 plus 1. And Lauren, the charge on chlorine, because it's a halogen, is going to be -1? Yes. Okay. So if it's a -1 and +1, the formula will just be HCl, as you see written here. Oxyacids. When you have oxygen as a polyatomic ion, what element does this start with? Okay, so oxyanion, you take the root, you add ic and acid, you're done. When I say root, though, you're going to have to change it sometimes. You're going to have to drop the ending of the root. And where is this root? Oxyacids are all what type of ion? Oops. They're all what? What type of ion are all these they're anions. And what else do we call them? Polyatomic ions. Polyatomic ions. So where do we look to find their name? Where do you look to find the name of a polyatomic ion? The polyatomic ion list. Yeah. That would help. So if we look, what is this polyatomic ion called? Sulfate. Okay. Why do we call it an acid again? Jeffrey, do you remember? Because it starts with hydrogen. If it starts with hydrogen, it's going to be an acid. So the sulfate becomes sulfuric. Thank you, Connor, for that most awesome sticker-worthy question. What is this? Water. Okay, that's a common name. Can you give me a chemical name? Could we call it dihydrogen monoxide? We sure could. And as I mentioned yesterday, you could look up the web page of the committee to ban dihydrogen monoxide, because science will blind you and make you think, wow, that sounds really bad. Dihydrogen monoxide kind of sounds like carbon monoxide. Well, one is that and the other's not. So, and dihydrogen monoxide kills people when they drown. What else could we call this? Connor says, can't I name this an acid? Absolutely. But it's not a polyatomic acid, right? It's a binary acid. So we're going to call it hydro something ic acid. What goes here? Right, the anion root. So what is that? That's oxygen. So it's hydroxide, hydroxic acid. Holy cow. Let's rewrite this. Hydroxic acid. So you need to go home and you need to tell your parents, I'm going to wash my hands with hydroxyl acid. Miss J said, I need to wash my hands with hydroxyl acid. Or you could say, I have to get a drink of some dihydrogen monoxide. Nikita. Water has a pH of 7, which is neutral. So it is neither an acid nor base, or both at the same time in equal amounts. It is an acid, and it is a base in equal amounts. Acids start with H. Can I tell you something else, Connor? If I were to write this out as an acid, wouldn't I write it HOH? Oh, so wait a minute here. What's OH? That's a polyatomic ion called hydroxide. Ooh, did I do this right? Yeah, pretty much. I could call it hydrohydroxic acid. Hydrohydroxic acid. Sounds a lot like hydrated to me. And anytime you have hydroxides, they are bases. So it is an equal amount of base and acid that makes it a pH of 7. I'm going to say that again. It's an equal amount of base and acid that makes it a pH of 7. Okay. Back to this. The difference between a binary acid and oxyacid, binary acids contain hydrogen and one other element. Done. They have the prefix hydro. Whoops, sorry. They have the prefix hydro, the root of the other element, and then they have the suffix ic acid. So it's kind of weird. The longer name is the shorter formula. Because Kaylee, if I say hydrochloric acid, there's just two elements, hydrogen and chlorine. If oxyacids, all you do is say whatever the polyatomic ion is, you change the ending and say acid. So sulfuric acid. Isn't that what Bart Simpson was writing on the beginning of this? I think it's what he was writing. So sulfuric, H is SO4. We're going to have an H here. What's the charge on a sulfate? Shorter name, sulfuric acid. Look, Kaylee, no hydro. So it's a polyatomic. It's a longer formula, shorter name. It's kind of weird. It's just the naming rules. The beauty of naming rules test is once you know the naming rules, it's the same for every problem. Just like a lot of things we've done in chemistry. Once you know how to do one, you can do them all. Sulfuric acid. What's the charge on sulfate? I believe it's -2. And hydrogen is a +1. So my formula has to be H2SO4. Moving on. Binary acids usually are all of these halogens. Usually. However, these are some oxyacids. Why don't you practice writing the name and the formula for these acids? I'm just going to do it silently up here, but you should try to do it on your own right now. I write the anion. I write the anion. Nitrate is the NO3. Hey, by the way, on the test, some of you put sulfate instead of sulfite. A few of you. NO3 is, I think, -1. Carbonate, CO2. -2. Chlorate, ClO3 or 2? I think it's 3. Okay. Will, if I have a charge of -2, how many hydrogens am I going to need? 2. Stefan, if I have a charge of -3, how many hydrogens am I going to need? Good. 3. Kaylee, if I have a charge of -1, how many hydrogens am I going to need? 1. If I have carbonate and charge of -2, Cade, how many am I going to need? How many hydrogens? You starting to see a pattern here? You like it? Yeah. I'm so glad you like it. ClO3 is a -1 charge. Kaylina, how many hydrogens am I going to need if I have a -1 charge? Yes, 1. Okay. What would be the name for these acids? If it's sulfate, I'm going to tell you a little rule, because it's going to change when we do sulfite and nitrite and chlorite and any others. If they have phosphite, I don't know if we have phosphite. You ready? If it's 8, if you ate it, it would be icky. Would it not? If you ate this, it would be icky? Yeah, sulfuric acid is one of the strongest acids, and it is the most common acid on the trains and the trucks because it is the most common industrial acid used in the world. The paper mill used to use it to break down the paper, and you used to smell it, that sulfur. Stinky brimstone. So if it's ick, if it's 8, it would be icky. So this would be sulfuric acid. Phosphate, phosphoric acid. Nitrate. Anybody else want to do that one? Thanks, Jeffrey. Nitric acid. How about carbonate, Brock? It could be carbic. We're going to do carbonic, of course. You just never know. They're a little weird on how they switch those. Sorry. Gus, chlorate. Yes, that one is chloric acid. Good job, guys. Again, if you didn't get the names, there they are. And those are your formulas, in case you didn't get them. Okay, can we talk about this a little bit? There's some different names here. There's actually 2 different names. What are the 2 names you've never seen before? Well, perchloric acid. That's just taking a perchlorate ion and making it perchloric. But I spy with my little eye this suffix. Stefan, could you say this name, please? The one I just underlined? Chlorus. Yeah. Emily, did you say the last one? Hypochlorous acid. When do you use this OUS? When it's an ike. There is an I in us, right? Theoretically, there's no I in team, but there is an I in us. And so, well, if I'm referring to, like, the group of people, if I'm saying the term us, I'm including myself. I, right? Not in the spelling. This was chlorite ion, right here, ClO2. This was hypochlorite acid, ClO. If you look, that's what the polyatomic ion names were. So maybe Will can do another one for us since he knows all of these. Will, what would be the formula for nitrous acid? Oh, you would need a polyatomic ion sheet out because you probably don't have it. Maybe you have it memorized. Pretty smart.
I don't have it memorized quite yet.
If I tell you, I look on a polyatomic ion sheet and I see nitrate, and I see nitrite. Oops, I never wrote that. You never saw that. Nitrite. That's an I. Which one do I use to make nitrous acid? Desiree, which one do we use to make nitrous acid? Will is unsure. Ah, he says NO2. Do you agree? Yep. If it was an us, it came from an ite. If it's an ick, it came from an 8 because Will's been paying attention, and if I'm implying anything different, I'm a liar. So, or I'm inaccurate at least. Nitrous acid would be, what would be the formula? It would be NO2. What comes at the beginning? Because it's an acid, Mr. Olson, H. Got a -1 charge here, so how many hydrogens do we need? 1. Oh, it's all coming together. Name these. Name them. Ooh, ooh. SO3 is sulfite. So if the polyatomic ion name for SO3 is sulfite, this becomes Sulfurous. Good job. Good job. Sulfurous. It's an oxyanion. Remember, it's a longer formula, shorter name. No hydro. There's no hydro for any of these. They're all polyatomic ions. Hyponitrous. Because if I look on my polyatomic ion list, nice way to draw the foul. ClO4, I think that's a perchlorate ion, isn't it? A perchlorate ion is going to be perchloric. Okay. If it's PO4, it's phosphate, and so it's going to be phosphoric. Because if you ate it, it would be icky. Okay, done. Good job, guys.